you're going to forget making that promise.
You may no longer be who you are now.
Gee, there's only one sentence. Thank nominee. I wonder who that is.
Who are you? I have to release the power in my heart. The dark power that I've been holding back. Even if it changes me forever.
Okay. You know, here's something nobody tells you going into these games. These are stories about kids being disassembled. That might feel metaphorical. These games do give off the vibe of coming of age or growing pain stories, but they never quite end where those do. So, when I say kids being disassembled, I mean something a little closer to literal. Memories extracted and repackaged. Hearts separated from bodies and left to wander around as separate entities. Clones created out of whatever they're made of, and every adult in a position to stop it either helped do it, watched it happen, or wrote a report about it afterward and called it research. Nobody asked the kid on the beach if he wanted any of this. So, before I get into who did what to whom, let's remember where the first one ended. A boy closes a door. Once again, not metaphorical. An actual, massive white door groaning shut on a realm that eats light for a living. His best friend and a king are on the other side of it. They get sealed away with a horde of dark creatures. He makes a promise to a girl before getting separated by whatever the mechanics of interdimensional travel amount to in this universe. And the last thing he hears is a voice telling him the one thing he'll spend the next part of his life forgetting how to believe. You are the one who will open the door to the light. And that's it. That's where the first game leaves him. Mid-journey, essentially homeless, walking down a dirt road toward the next crisis. I get the creators didn't know what to expect when they made this game. What they did when the game took off is the opposite of sticking to a formula. It's like they shattered what they had and started making a story out of the pieces. A story that really takes its time putting some of those pieces together in a different arrangement. Like the first arrangement wasn't quite correct. And you know what? It worked. The next game starts with a boy named Roxas, waking up in a town that isn't on any map Sora ever piloted a ship to. Roxas doesn't know who Sora is. Roxas doesn't seem to have ever heard the term Kingdom Hearts. He starts his week eating ice cream on a clock tower with his friends, entering a fighting tournament called The Struggle. In other words, living an ordinary adolescence that has nothing to do with saving anyone. And then, in the second half of that week, Roxas falls off a clock tower, but somehow he still wakes up the next day. And by the end of that week, he ends up finding an egg that unfolds like a flower. The symbolism here is great, by the way, because out of that egg, a certain somebody is reborn.
Sora! Who's there?
That's the handoff. That's roughly the structure of the story we get before we've even really started the game. The sequel to a boy's rescue mission doesn't begin with the boy. Somewhere between Game 1 and Game 2, Sora was contained, and the thing that used to be a straightforward hero's journey, kid finds sword, kid closes door, kid moves on, that thing picks up in something closer to an evidence room. A boy in a pod, a witness who can't remember what he witnessed, a missing ear nobody seems to want to explain. Quick heads up before I dive in here, I tried mapping this out a few different ways. My first instinct was to lay the whole thing out as one clean timeline from KH1, then Chain of Memories inside 358 over 2 days, and then into KH2. That lasted about as long as it takes to notice that the three main stories in between are happening almost concurrently, and those three main characters don't cross paths much, if at all. Sora's memory is being tampered with on the upper floors of a castle, while a version of his best friend is losing his mind in the basement of that same castle, while somewhere else entirely, a kid is born or reborn, and he ends up trying to figure out the meaning of the term best friend and the word Sora. Flatten those arcs into a single timeline and Yeah, I mean, it made sense to me, but it still felt pretty scatterbrained. So here's what I'm doing instead. One person at a time. One perspective per video. I'm gonna walk through this stretch of the story the way each of them actually lived it. Blind to what everyone else was going through, working off partial information, making decisions that only make sense from inside their own skull. It's slower, I might repeat myself a bit, but it's the only way I've found to actually untangle who did what, and why, and what it could mean, without turning the whole thing into some sort of flowchart. So, if you want to see how this series pans out, you know what to do, and no, I don't ever plan on saying the thing. I'll go easy and start with the one who slept through most of it. Basically, just a chain of memories where there's a building. Nobody built it to be lived in. Technically, nobody built it to exist at all. Make of that what you will, but this building exists the way a word exists after you've said it too many times and it stops sounding like a word. The people who go in call it Castle Oblivion. John Locke, no, not the guy from the show about surviving after crash landing on an island, though the irony isn't lost on me. I mean John Locke, the philosopher. A guy from the 1600s who had the idea of supply and demand before it was known as supply and demand. He's also had a hand in topics that are still controversial today. I bring him up because Kingdom Hearts has a neat way of playing around with one of his concepts. He argued that personal identity isn't stored in your body or your soul, it's stored in memory. Locke basically said, you are the sum of what you can remember being. Break the chain of memory, and you break the person, like unmake them. Replace the you with a stranger wearing your face. It's a fascinating concept. If you didn't do that thing you did, would you still be you? The masterminds behind this castle must have read the same philosophy, and instead of finding it troubling or just interesting, they found it useful. With that in mind, everything that follows is an attempt to figure out what this building actually does to a person. We're told up front that this is a fair trade. We'll eventually learn that in this universe, a person is a much less stable category than it sounds. Before the castle, there's a dirt path, grass, a dog with a letter in his mouth. Sora, Donald, and Goofy are doing what they always do, following instinct and assuming that wherever the little clues lead, their friends will be waiting. This is Sora's operating system. It worked for an entire game, and he has no reason to distrust it. Yet. At a crossroads, alone, a man in a black coat speaks to him directly with a proposition in a tone that's threatening? Maybe intimidating is the best word.
Along the road ahead lies something you need. However, in order to claim it, you must lose something that is dear to you.
And then he's gone, and eventually they reach a castle that looks a lot like the one in a certain girl's sketchbook. A girl we haven't met yet, drawing in a white room with a doll of herself locked in a cage. Where were we? Oh yeah. Sora walks toward the castle with Donald and Goofy, and the door? Well, Sora was told he's the chosen door opener, so of course he opens the door himself. Inside, all of them suddenly get hit with the same exact hunch.
But we gotta do it if we're gonna find the king.
The king? King Mickey's here?
Something just told me he'd be here, okay?
Really? 'Cause now that you mention it, I was kinda thinking the same thing.
Seriously? Me too. One look at this castle, and I just knew. Our very best friends. They're here.
Yup, guess great minds think alike.
Wait, hey, hold on. It can't be just a coincidence.
Jiminy Cricket, Pinocchio's conscience, and in this game series, his main function is to keep a written record of what the hell actually happened to these people. He flags their sudden epiphany as wrong. He's right. It's not normal for a person, two animals, and a bug to spontaneously develop the identical gut feeling of missing people's whereabouts. Something is already inside their heads. A hooded man closes the door behind them personally and gets Sora to summon his weapon. He demonstrates that none of them remember how to use magic anymore. Donald tries, nothing happens.
Why isn't it working?
I should think it's obvious. The moment you set foot in this castle, you forgot every spell and every ability you ever knew. In this place, to find is to lose, and to lose is to find. That is the way in Castle Oblivion.
Castle Oblivion?
Here you will meet people that you have known in the past, and you will meet people you miss.
I miss? Riku! You mean Riku's here?
That's the hook. Totally subtle, right? After passing through Sora, he conjures a card with a picture of Traverse Town, a place Sora definitely knows.
What'd you do?
I merely sampled your memories, and from them, I made this. To reunite with those you hold dear.
What's this? A card?
It is a promise for the reunion you seek. Hold the card to open the door, and beyond it a new world. Proceed, Sora. To lose and claim anew, or to claim anew only to lose.
At this point, pretty much everything in Sora's memory has been turned into cards. Quick note on the card system, I hated it. I eventually got the hang of it, but it's definitely not my thing. But did you notice? Not a single threat from this hooded dude. He just describes this machine of a building honestly, tells him what it runs on, and lets him walk in anyway, because the reward is something Sora has never been able to say no to. Somebody he loves might be behind that door. That's the whole confidence game. It only works on people capable of love in the first place, which is probably going to become the thesis of a much later video of a certain organization. Thanks to the card, Sora and company pass through the door and enter Traverse Town. The first thing Sora loses is his friends. Donald and Goofy are just gone. When they reappear moments later, courtesy of the hooded man's cards, they can't account for the gap. They're wearing different clothes, but they don't remember putting them on. Neither of them remembers past the light at the door, or where the door took them, or what happened in between. Just blank. A hole with clean edges where a memory should be. Then, Sora runs into Leon, and clearly, something's wrong. Leon doesn't recognize him. Doesn't recognize Donald or Goofy. As far as his own memory is concerned, he's never met any of them in his life. But he knows their names anyway, without being told, and that bothers him a lot more than the stranger standing in front of him. Something's feeding him information his own memory never generated, and he can feel the seam. Aerith is the one who names what's actually happening, and she does it gently, which somehow makes it worse. This town, she tells him, isn't real. It's a reconstruction pulled directly out of Sora's own head, which means Leon isn't really Leon, and she isn't really Aerith, and everyone he's talking to is some sort of hallucination. Sora pushes back on this the way you'd expect. They're standing right there. The town is right there. How can any of it be fake if he can touch it? Let's think on that for a second. Sora's memory of these people is strong enough to override their own memory of themselves. He shows up in a fabricated copy of their town, and his recollection of who Leon is outweighs whatever Leon's own recollection currently contains. In a sense, it's flattering, proof of how much he cared. Alternatively, it could mean the Leon in front of him isn't quite a person being remembered. More like he's a puppet created from Sora's memory and being used as a test for this experiment that is Castle Oblivion. And, in the way everyone in this castle likes to talk, aka saying something then vanishing, Aerith warns him that the shadows of his own memory are going to keep trying to lead him somewhere he doesn't want to go, which is a strange thing to be told by a hallucination. Wait for it. And she's gone. So, a warning against trusting hallucinations delivered by one, and Sora doesn't really get a chance to sit with the irony before he's moving on to the next room. Between the first and second floor, another coded figure introduces himself with the confidence of a used car salesman who already knows you're gonna buy the car.
Hello.
What do you want?
No hogging the hero.
Then perhaps you'd like to test him.
Perhaps I would. My show now, Keyblade Master. Who am I? Oh, my name's Axel. Got it memorized?
Sure.
He fights them, is beaten by them, disappears, and reappears to explain the terms of the journey.
You will need to follow your memories. Trust what you remember and seek what you forget. Then you will find someone very special.
You mean King Mickey and Riku?
You will just have to give some more thought to who it is that's most important to you.
And then, before he vanishes for now, a warning that Sora is going to spend the rest of the game failing to fully understand until it's much too late to act on it.
But be forewarned. When your sleeping memories awaken, you may no longer be who you are now.
And he's gone. And once again, nobody stops to ask what that means. Why stop when there's not really any choices moving forward? They might feel like choices when you're choosing a room based on your current situation, but that's the whole trick of the place. You forget to interrogate the premise when you're focused on what room you'll be able to survive next. The climb functions like a slow leak. Each world Sora passes through is one he's already been to. Agrabah, Olympus Coliseum, Wonderland, Monstro, Halloween Town. Places he should remember, populated with people who mostly don't recognize him, and occasionally cross-contaminated with people who shouldn't be there at all. And with every floor he climbs, real memories, the actual ones from before the castle, start disappearing from their heads with no ceremony whatsoever.
Course we will. Like at that creepy castle we explored together. The one with all those weird contraptions.
When was that?
I can't remember. What was it called?
Gorge. Oh, it was, Holly? Holler? Sorry, I can't remember.
They seem to forget an entire castle they visited together. They forget a near-death encounter. It's like their hard drive's getting wiped. Goofy's response every time is the same shrug.
Don't worry, fellers. We might forget about where we've been or what things we've seen, but we won't forget who our friends are.
That's a nice thing to say, but somewhere around the fourth floor, Sora starts remembering a person who was never once mentioned in the first game. A girl, blonde, quiet, always drawing.
There was another girl.
What? A girl? Where?
No, I mean on the islands where I used to live. Besides Kairi and Riku, there was one other girl I was friends with. The four of us played together all the time.
Sora? Seems to me that's the first time you've mentioned her.
Yeah, I guess I forgot all about her. I think she just suddenly went away when I was still really little.
This is either the single most important cognitive event in the entire game, or it's nothing. And since Sora's the test subject here, he has no way of telling which. That's the plot we get to witness. A memory that didn't exist 10 minutes ago is now presenting itself as a memory that's existed its whole life. He can't tell the difference between recovering something true and manufacturing something false because, from the inside, they produce an identical feeling. That's the whole argument this castle is making for this universe, that a person's sense of who they are can be poured in like concrete, and it'll set and feel just like any other concrete memories. By the sixth floor, a woman named Larxene forces the name out of him with violence and a certain pendant, and it lands somewhere between revelation and assault.
Sora, you're getting it now. Release the memory from within your heart.
Nominate.
He gets it back, but not the peace of mind. He never gets the peace of mind again. This game does something cruel with a relationship Sora actually trusts. Somewhere past the halfway mark, a figure Sora is certain is his best friend starts turning up floor after floor, and every conversation follows the same structure: hope, contact, betrayal.
But you're not anymore, right? Now it's only Nominee that you're looking for. You don't care about me, just like you never cared. At all. About her feelings.
Nominees?
I knew it. Never even gave it a thought, did you?
Darkness, paints over this Riku. He summons a weapon and says something that should have told Sora everything, if Sora had been in any state of mind to hear it as information rather than as pain.
What's wrong with you? We're supposed to be friends!
Please, Sora. Since when have you ever cared about me? Nominee's not the only one who's sick of looking at you. So am I!
They fight, repeatedly. Each fight ends with Riku fleeing and calling him a fraud on his way out. So each flight leaves Sora more certain that his best friend is slipping away from him. Jiminy, doing his job, offers his thoughts on the matter.
Sure was strange. Almost like Ansem was back, controlling Riku again.
But we got rid of Ansem for good.
Then I wonder what is wrong with Riku.
Hold on! The kid! If he's with Riku, he might be in danger. Sora?
I know. You're thinking Riku isn't your friend. But that's just not true.
You sure?
Well, I know he said some awful things to you back there. But you gotta remember, we are in Castle Oblivion. Why, folks lose their memory here a little bit at a time. Riku's probably just forgotten that the two of you were such close friends. That's all.
It's a decent theory. It's also wrong, and the truth, when it finally surfaces, is worse. This Riku is a replica, a manufactured duplicate constructed by a scientist, implanted with fabricated memories of a childhood promise to protect a girl whose existence will be the topic for another video. The counterfeit doesn't know it's a counterfeit. It fights Sora believing that it's defending something real. Larxene is the one who breaks the news about this Riku replica. She does it purely to hurt him, which is saying something about what truths can do when you remove the veil.
That thing lying there is just a puppet that Vexen made as an experiment. No more than a toy. It's laughable, really. It called you a fake, but it was the fabrication all along.
Not Riku. A fake?
Fake in every possible way. It was only finished recently. How could it remember anything? You get it? Its memories with Nominee were just planted, not real.
So, a copy of his best friend running on carefully placed affection gets thrown at Sora specifically to make him doubt the original. Ask what friendship even is in a universe where affection can be installed in a stranger, and the stranger will fight to the death defending a bond he never actually had. The replica was another victim being used to plant something within Sora. Accusation, maybe? But nobody has time to grieve, or even a choice but to move on, as designed. By the time we get to the top, the operation finally shows its hand. Marluxia, Larxene, and Axel have been running a coup inside the coop, using a captive girl's power to rewrite Sora's heart from the inside, planning to walk him out of the castle as a fully owned weapon pointed at their own leadership. And before you comment about Axel, I know, but Sora doesn't get all the juicy details about that. The video's about Sora's perspective here.
Axel!
Yo, Sora! Did I catch you at a bad time?
Axel, Why?
I came to stop you from talking too much. By eliminating your existence.
No, don't do it!
We are just nobodies who have no one to be, yet we still are. But now you can be nothing instead of just being a nobody. You're off the hook.
No! Please don't! I don't want to...
Goodbye.
What are you? What are you people?
Don't know. I wonder about that myself.
Oh shoot, I almost forgot. I gotta talk about the girl, because he does learn about her. The girl doing the actual rewriting is the same girl Sora's been remembering into existence, Naminé, and she's been ordered, under threat of permanent imprisonment, to make him believe a lie so completely engineered it comes with a manufactured promise and a matching keepsake charm. When the two versions of her finally stand in front of him at once, the real one and the one his own memory built to protect itself, Sora is handed the actual mechanism of the entire castle, and it's somehow gentler and more devastating than anything Axel or Larxene ever said to him.
Naminé?
That isn't me. I'm not there. I don't really exist inside your heart. I don't exist in anyone's heart. I never have existed anywhere.
What are you saying? What's gotten into you? Weren't we inseparable? Always together? But then you had to go away. I came here so I'd never lose you again.
Was it really me you wanted to see?
Of course it was. I know I've forgotten a lot of things in this castle, but never anything about you. Look, you gave this to me, didn't you?
You have it. My good luck charm. No, Sora, you can't believe me.
What am I supposed to do?
By the time he reaches Naminé directly, she confesses without being asked, and the confession is worth a thought, because I think it's the only moment in Chain of Memories where someone admits, plainly, what was actually done and why.
I took the people and memories that were inside Sora's heart. And little by little, I replaced them with false memories.
Hey, what about Sora's promise?
Made up. It was fake. Sora never really promised me anything. Me being with him on the islands, that was a lie, just like everything else. We never met. I was never Sora's friend.
And you were never anything more, either.
No. You see, in all of your true memories, I was never really there.
And here's where the game nearly forces you to stop and ask, does it matter? Marluxia's answer is that it should. That a fake memory is a corrosive thing, a corruption to be purged, a weakness to be exploited. Sora's answer, delivered under threat of having his heart destroyed, is important because it's the moment he stops being a passive subject of the experiment and starts setting the terms himself.
I don't care! You can erase my memory!
Sora, why'd you say that?
Because who will I look after if I don't have Naminé? So just do it! Erase my memories! Destroy my heart! I promised! I'll always protect you! You have to believe me!
He knows, at this exact moment, that the promise is fake. He says it anyway. Why? Because a promise you know to be constructed can still generate real obligation, if the person making it decides to honor it regardless. The memory was engineered, sure, but the choice to act on it was his. Somewhere in that gap is a definition of identity that survives throughout this castle, and after. Identity is what you decide to do about what you believe happened to you, even after you've been told out loud that it's fiction. Marluxia is defeated, both times because the Marluxia Sora kills first turns out to be an illusion too, a decoy standing in for the real target one more time. Because of course it does. This building doesn't know how to hand anyone anything without a counterfeit attached. Let's move on to the actual ending. And just like in the first game, it's not a victory lap. At least this time, we get a diagnosis and a treatment plan delivered by the person who did the damage because she's the only one qualified to fix it.
Can you put our memories back?
Yes. Not remembering something doesn't really mean that it's gone.
What do you mean?
When you remember one thing, that leads to remembering another. And then another, and then another. Our memories are connected. Many pieces are linked together, like they're in a chain that makes up each of us. I don't actually erase any memories. Just take apart the links and rearrange them. You still have all your memories.
She can put it back, but not all of it. Not both versions at once, so Sora is handed an actual choice for once with full knowledge of the stakes.
You said you'd have to undo the links of the memories you made. But that means...
Yes. You won't be able to remember anything about what happened here.
Not even you?
I'm sorry. It's the only way, I'm afraid. Sora, you have a choice. You can lose your memories of this castle and reclaim your old ones, or keep your memories here and give up the memories that you've lost.
Do I have to choose?
Yes.
Make me like I was.
Oh, okay. Nobody needs to keep a bunch of memories that aren't real, right? You want to remember all of the people who are really important to you.
He chooses to forget the castle, to forget her, to basically go back to being the kid who walked in minus the knowledge of what happened inside. And then, climbing into the pod that'll do the forgetting for him, he makes her a promise he has every reason to believe he can't keep because he's about to lose the ability to remember making it.
All of this may have started with a lie, but I really am glad that I could meet you, Sora.
Yeah, me too. When I finally found you, and even when I remembered your name, I was happy. The way I felt then, that was no lie.
Goodbye.
No, not goodbye. When I wake up, I'll find you. And then there will be no lies. We're gonna be friends for real. Promise me, Naminé.
You're going to forget making that promise.
If the chain of memories comes apart, the links will still be there, right? So the memory of our promise will always be inside me somewhere. I'm sure of it.
A promise made in full knowledge that it'll be erased. A bet that identity isn't stored in the specific facts you can recite about yourself, but in choices like who you decide to be regardless of what you can currently prove about your own past. Whether that bet pays off is a question the sequel exists to answer. Maybe.
A promise? Huh. Sora, some of your memory's links are deep in the shadows of your heart, and I won't be able to find them. But don't worry. You made another promise to someone who you could never replace. She is your light. The light within the darkness. Remember her, and all the memories lost in the shadows of your heart will come into the light.
Another promise.
Look at the good luck charm. I changed its shape when I changed your memory. But when you thought of her just once, it went back to the way it was.
There it is. Proof that some part of the wiring survived underneath everything that was rearranged. The darkness becomes light. He goes to sleep knowing he's gonna forget everything that just happened on purpose, by his own request, having personally authorized the erasure of the only account of what was done to him. So let's talk about what waking up actually looks like, because nobody in this story is going to say it plainly, so I will. Nearly a year passes. For everyone else at least, Sora gets a jump cut. 1 second he's a kid handing his own memories over to a girl that he chose to forget, and then his eyes are open and his clothes don't fit, and there's a duck and a dog laughing at how much he's grown, and none of them can tell you where the missing time went, because none of them have it either. Everything went as planned. He wakes up in a town he's never seen in his life. Nobody in this town has ever heard of him. There's a train station, a clock tower, some kids his own age sitting around eating ice cream who look at him like he wandered in from nowhere, because he kinda did. And Sora, being Sora, does what he always does with a gap in the record. He shrugs and moves on, because apparently moving on is the only skill this entire ordeal ever actually taught him.
You know, I think I've been to this town.
What's it called?
Guess I must have imagined it.
He imagined it. Like deja vu at a gas station, that's the explanation he settles on for this place. Just, guess I imagined it. That's the whole tragedy of this kid in one sentence. And the thing that was supposed to be the actual paper trail, the journal, comes back.
Gee, there's only one sentence. Thank nominee. I wonder who that is.
A note to thank somebody with the name none of them can place. Sora just built an entire relationship and promise around that name, and all of that was wiped clean without so much as a scar left where it used to be, replaced with something that might as well be on a post-it note left by a stranger. He asked for this, and he got what he ordered. And Sora's happy, somehow cracking jokes with Donald and Goofy about growth spurts, ready to go find Riku and the king. To him, none of that castle happened. Maybe that's resilience. Maybe that's just what a person looks like after they've been edited enough times that they stop noticing the cuts. However you want to interpret that is up to you. He's not going to help you figure it out because he doesn't even remember having a choice to make. Now, While Sora was busy having his hard drive fragmented and defragmented, somebody else was awake for all of it. Didn't get the mercy of a pod or a girl offering him amnesia as a kindness, or a clean jump cut to the part where the sun's out and the ice cream's melting. He stayed conscious through the whole thing. It's accessed like a bonus feature, unlocked when you finish Sora's journey, but it's part of the actual story. They just told us the part with the soft landing first. Sora doesn't know what he lost. He might not even know the castle was even there, and that's as close to mercy as this whole ordeal gets, but even that came with its own breadcrumbs. Anyways, next time, the one who stayed awake. Thanks for watching.